Hello, YouTubers. Alaska Prepper here.
It is also Victor.
Oh, no. Victor is here. This is a serious...
And Dog.
And Dog is here. Victor, this is a serious
These are good
video.
ribs.
Victor's eating some ribs that I made, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm trying to explain to Victor that this is a serious video and he can't just be interrupting all the time. All right, Victor? So sit there and listen because you may learn something. This is actually very important.
What is video about?
Well, sit there and listen and you'll find out, okay? If you have questions, save them till the end, all right?
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, sorry for that minor interruption. So, ladies and gentlemen, you saw the title, and there's actually a bill in Congress. It's called H.R. 5404 that was, that was sponsored by Representative Mooney of West Virginia. All right, all the way back in March of 2018, so a little over a year ago. And if you take a look at here, it has 0 co-sponsors. That means that this bill is just sitting in Congress and it hasn't been voted on or anything like that. Okay, so I'm wondering, and I heard about this bill today in a video. I think it was by Gregory Manorino. I follow him. He's a finance guy that has video every now and then. And I heard about this bill, so I'm like, you know what? I heard about this a while back, but let me go and actually read it. And the bill's not that long. So I read the bill, which I'm going to read for you guys. Like I said, it's not that long, but it got me thinking to another bill that was actually passed through Congress and was made into law back in, I believe it was 2014 or 2010. I think it was sometime in 2014. But let's read this. And this is what this bill is. Bank deposit bail-in law is biggest threat to average USA and G20 savers. All right. So we're concentrating on the USA. So if you don't know what a bail-in is, if you guys remember back in 2008 where the banks were bailed out, they were bailed out with taxpayer money, meaning that nobody came to your bank account and took money out of your bank account to give to these banks to bail them out, to make them whole, right? They were bailed out with taxpayer money, all right? So everybody footed the bill for that. A bail-in is the opposite. A bail-in is if a bank fails, the bank is going to use whatever equity it has to bail itself out from within. So let's say, for example, I was a bank and I had, let's just say I had 10 people who deposited money in my bank, all right? They think it's their money. But this here law makes it to where if you deposit money in a bank, all right, you are no longer a depositor. You're considered a creditor. So now, since this law was passed, if a bank fails, there will not be a bailout for that bank, meaning that the government isn't going to take taxpayer funds to bail that bank out. That bank is going to bail in whatever accounts it has in order for it to make itself whole. And since we as depositors are now considered creditors, guess who is in line before all of us? The stockholders are, all right, of those banks. They get their money first. Guess who gets their money last? Whatever's left of it, the creditors are. Okay? So that's why this law is a big deal. And I think it has something to do with this H.R. 5404 that's just sitting there in Congress. Okay? So, like I said, they passed this law here back a few years back. And I'm going to read it to you really quick so that you can get an idea of exactly what it is. All right? So it says here, if you ask any number of Americans to tell you if they believe their bank accounts are protected, a modicum of the group will reply that the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, the FDIC, as everyone knows it, backstops their money and accounts up to $250,000. So in other words, everyone is under the I'm going to call it a spell because it's exactly what it is, because it's not real. Everyone thinks that they are insured up to $250,000 in their accounts if they have whatever they have in the bank. All right. However, if you push the envelope a little further and ask them if the FDIC has any other function, they will stare blankly at you and perhaps mumble that they are simply another government agency with one specific purpose. All right. It used to be that the FDIC was just the insurer of bank accounts up to $100,000, and then in 2008 they changed it to $250,000 so that people wouldn't pull their money out of the banks. All right. But now, after this law is passed, the FDIC has one other function besides being an insurer. This, however, is no longer true, saying that the FDIC only has one function. And in fact, the FDIC has taken a much larger role. Back in 2012, the FDIC met with the Bank of England in a joint conference to hash out the framework for bail-in procedures should not only banks go insolvent, but also should there be a sovereign debt default in the wake of a financial collapse. And perhaps more importantly for the common man and individual, the FDIC now has the power to write down your account without ever having to compensate you through promised insurance, as they were required by law prior to this conference and the passage of Dodd-Frank. So pretty much what they're saying is that your money is no longer really insured. If there is a systemic bank failure, your money is going to be used as a way to bail out the banks. But it's going to be with the depositors' money, not with public funds, i.e. where everyone is paying through the taxes that we pay, just like they bailed out the banks in 2008. It's not going to be like that anymore. With this law, it says that the depositors, that the people that actually have money in the bank are the ones that are going to lose that money, all right, or lose a portion of that money in order for the banks to be made whole. If you guys go ahead and research a little bit about Cyprus, I think it was back in the early 2000s, maybe, the people in Cyprus had a bail-in, and the average person with money in the bank there lost, I think it was like 46% of their deposits. All right, so let's carry on. Title II of the Dodd-Frank Act provides the FDIC with new powers to resolve systemically important financial institutions by establishing the Orderly Liquidation Authority under the, okay, so that's their new role, all right? Under the OLA, the FDIC may be appointed receiver for any U.S. financial company that meets specified criteria, including being in default or in danger of default, and whose resolution under the U.S. Bankruptcy Code or other relevant insolvency process would likely create systemic instability. So what this is saying here is that the FDIC will now be able to be appointed, I would say in layman terms, as like the caretaker of a bank that is failing or has failed. And if that bank is going to fail and cause a domino effect where a lot of other banks are going to fail, they can take over that bank, okay? So it says here, in the U.S., Title II requires that the losses of any financial company placed into receivership will not be borne by taxpayers, all right? This is the important part, all right? But by common and preferred stockholders, debt holders, and other unsecured creditors, all right? And you know who the unsecured creditors are? It's going to be whoever has money in that bank. And that management responsibility for the condition of the financial company will be replaced. All right, I'm not going to go over what the UK is, all right? But here it says, this is Zero Hedge kind of simplifies it for us, all right? So it says here, so if a large bank fails in the US, the FDIC steps in and takes over, replacing management, and works to shrink the bank by writing down liabilities and converting debt into equity, all right? In other words, any liability at the bank is in danger of being written down should the banks fail. All right. And guess what? Depositors are considered liabilities. All right. You being a depositor, you having money in the bank, you are considered a liability to that bank because that bank has to make sure that you can get your money back. All right. So that a deposit into the bank that you make is actually a liability for that bank. All right. So depositors are considered liabilities according to U.S. banking law, and depositors are creditors. All right. So when I saw this bill, H.R. 5404, I was thinking, they passed this Dodd-Frank Act back in, when was it? 2010, 2012. Okay. And why did they do that? You know, ask yourself, why did they do that? In 2012, we're supposed to be, doing better in the economy. After 2008, we're supposed to be growing and all that stuff, right? So why did they pass this bill, right? And not many people talk about this in the mainstream media. It's not really known by a lot of people that you are no longer considered a depositor. You are now considered a creditor and a liability to the bank, all right? And not very many people know that the FDIC can now pretty much take over a bank, all right, if the bank is failing or fails, all right, and then they can bail in that bank with the money from its depositors, all right. So what I'm thinking is nothing in government or in politics happens by chance, all right. Everything is planned out, all right, and this is just my opinion. And they've had this law on the books now for several years, for more than 5 years, 5, 6, 7 years, all right? And now we have a bill, all right, that's just been sitting on the House floor for the last year, just sitting there collecting dust, all right, about turning the dollar back into a gold-backed currency, all right? So to me, it's just kind of, I don't know. I'm really thinking out loud here, but to me, it kind of makes sense that they are starting to stack these bills and these laws on top of each other and spread out far enough to where not too many people are asking questions. All right. So I'm sure they know something we don't. OK, but listen to this bill. This bill is great. This bill sounds great. But like I said, it has no co-sponsors. All right. And there's only one person who sponsored this bill, but it has no co-sponsors. And it's been sitting, at the House of Representatives for the last year just collecting dust. And how sometimes they'll have a bill just sitting there and then all of a sudden something happens. And then the next day they're like, oh, yeah, we have this bill that we can pass that will take care of this problem. Well, how can they have that bill ready if, that fast? Well, I think this is an example of this right here. I think that they're holding this bill right here. I think that they passed this bill, the one about the Dodd-Frank, knowing that in the future there are going to be more bank failures, and knowing that it's not very politically, it's not very politically sustainable for these politicians. It's not really politically good for them to say, oh, yeah, we're going to have another bailout, because the American people, they're not going to go for another bailout. So now what they're going to do is they're going to do the opposite. They're going to do a bail-in. They're actually going to take money from people that actually have money instead of taking it from everyone. All right. So this H.R. 5404, all right, it starts by, to define the dollar as a fixed weight of gold, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives of the United States of America and Congress assembled. Findings. And ladies and gentlemen, when you hear me say what these findings are, you're like, why in the world haven't we passed this bill yet? And the thing is I don't understand why we have to pass this bill, because it's already pretty much in the Constitution that says what real money really is and what money we're supposed to be using. Right? So here, findings. The United States dollar has lost 30% of its purchasing power since 2000 and 96% of its purchasing power since the end of the gold standard in 1913. Now, ladies and gentlemen, these people know this. They already know this, but they continue to print and they continue to do monetary policy that they've been doing, even though they know that the dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power since it became the dollar in 1913, since they got off the pure gold standard. Number two, under the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation objective, the dollar loses half of its purchasing power every generation or 35 years. American families need long-term price stability to meet their household spending needs, save money, and plan for retirement. The Federal Reserve policy of long-term inflation has made American manufacturing uncompetitive, raising the cost of the United States manufacturing goods by more than 40% since 2000, compared to less than 20% in Germany and France. Between 2000 and 2010, the United States manufacturing employment shrunk by one-third after holding steady for 30 years at nearly 20 million jobs. The American economy needs a stable dollar, fixed exchange rates, and money supply controlled by the market, not the government. The gold standard puts control of the money supply with the market instead of the Federal Reserve. So pretty much number 7 here pretty much tells me that if they pass this bill, the Federal Reserve will be a thing of the past. The gold standard means legal tender defined by and convertible into a certain quantity of gold. Under the gold standard through 1913, the United States economy grew at an annual average of 4%, one-third larger than the growth rate since then and twice the level of 2000. The International Gold Exchange Standard from 1914 to 1971 did not provide for the United States dollar convertibility into gold, and therefore helped cause the Great Depression and stagflation. The Federal Reserve's trickle-down policy of expanding the money supply with no demand for it has enriched the owners of financial assets, but endangered the jobs, wages, and savings of blue-collar workers. Number 12, restoring American middle-class prosperity requires change in monetary policy authorized to Congress in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 5 of the Constitution. Section 2, define the dollar in terms of gold. Effective 30 months after the date of enactment of this act. Number 1, the Secretary of Treasury shall define the dollar in terms of a fixed weight of gold based on that day's closing market price of gold, and Federal Reserve banks shall make Federal Reserve notes exchangeable with gold and the statutory gold definition of the statutory gold definition of the dollar. Okay. Section 3. During the 30-month period following the date of enactment of this act, the United States government shall take timely and reasonable steps to disclose all its holdings of gold, together with a contemporaneous report of the United States government purchase or sales, thus enhancing the ability of the market and market participants to arrive at the fixed dollar gold parity in an orderly fashion. So pretty much what this is saying, ladies and gentlemen, is to go back to a gold standard, all right? The only thing it doesn't state that I can see is that it doesn't say what percentage of the dollar will be backed by gold, all right? They're saying that within 30 months after the enactment of this bill, if this becomes law, that they have to come up with a percentage pretty much, all right? And my question is why is this just sitting there? Why is this bill just sitting there? Do they know something that we don't know? All right. First, we have a bail-in bill, all right, that has already been passed, all right, and no banks have bailed in anyone since it's passed. And now we have this bill sitting here in Congress just collecting dust, all right. I'm thinking that obviously I can't foresee the future, but in my opinion, I'm thinking that they're starting to stack up the decks so that if there is a systemic banking failure in the United States, they can come out with this bill, all right? A lot of people are going to lose money that have money in the banks, and then they can come out with this bill because the American people are going to be furious, especially those that lost money in the bank. They're going to be furious that they got bailed in, and they're going to want something that they can trust. And what can be trusted, what has been trusted for the last 5,000 plus years as being real money, all right, gold and silver, all right. So I know there's a lot of people out there that say gold and silver, you can't eat it and all this stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you a quick scenario, all right. Let me just give you a quick scenario. So let's say there is an SHTF, And I said it in the past, and I still stand by this. SHTFs don't last forever, all right? Let's say there is an SHTF, and it's because the economy and the banking system systemically failed, all right? Let's say that the banking system systemically fails, and we pretty much have to start from scratch, all right? We need money, all right? We need to have money. And the kind of money that we need to have is money that cannot be duplicated very easily. The reason that precious metals makes good money, excuse me, is because you need to invest capital in order to get it. All right. So that means that once you get it, once you dig that gold out of the ground or silver out of the ground, excuse me for a second. Sorry about that. Once you dig or you mine that gold and silver out of the ground and you process it and you make it into a coin or whatever, you've already have a lot of energy invested into that. So it's already worth what it's worth, right? You can't just print gold and silver out of thin air, all right? And you can't just barter. Let me give you a good example of why you can't just barter for everything. Right? In a complete SHTF where there's anarchy and stuff like that, and there's no government and things like that, yeah, you would have no choice, but the standard of living would be terrible, okay? And ladies and gentlemen, I don't believe that we're going to have that kind of an SHTF, all right? I think we're living through an SHTF, but in very slow motion, all right? And when it gets a little bit fast, that's when the system is going to change, I believe, all right? But let's say that we did have an SHTF where there was no currency available. How are you going to barter for everything you need? So for example, let's say that I raise cows, right? And I need someone to build me a shed, all right? And a carpenter comes by and he builds me a shed. What am I going to do? Tell him, yeah, can I give you a quarter or can I give you a half of a cow? What if that carpenter raises cows too and has a couple of cows and he's like, well, no, I already have all the beef that I need. You know, you're going to have to try to find something else that he'll take from you. All right. And let's say he does say, okay, I'll take a half of a cow. But then let's say that he needs a pair of shoes. What's he going to do? He's going to go to the, you know, a person that has a pair of shoes. He's going to have to find someone that has the pair of shoes that he needs, but that will also be willing to take a set amount of beef, because that's all he's got to trade with. It's that beef that he just earned. All right. And what about if he wants to go get a beer at the local, you know, salon? All right. What's he going to do? Bring a couple of pounds of beef with him to go get a beer? Or what if he wants to get a box of Cheerios? What's he going to do? Bring 6 ounces of beef with him to get a box of Cheerios? No, that's why we need money. We need money. Money is a vehicle that you can use to trade value back and forth. And being that precious metals, i.e. gold and silver, all right, are not easily extracted from the earth. And when they are extracted from the earth, it actually takes capital and labor and energy to extract it. Once it's extracted, it already has value. All right, it already has value. Here in Alaska, if you go gold panning, all right, and you get yourself a nugget, you know, that nugget already has value. You can take that nugget, go trade it in for money right away. It already has value. All right. So that's the value that you're exchanging for whatever it is that you need. Now, when you have money, all right, which is a way of exchanging value, you don't have to worry if you're a carpenter and the person that you're building a shed for is a rancher. Why? Because he's going to give you an ounce of gold for building him that shed, and then you can take that ounce of gold and you can divide it into however many pieces you want so that you can go buy a pair of shoes, so that you can go buy 10 pounds of beef, so that you can go buy, you know, a box of pencils for your kids or whatever. All right. So that's why we need money. A lot of people that are anti-precious metals, a lot of people don't understand that we cannot barter for everything, especially the way that we live now. You know, how are you going to pay for things that you order online, all right, with barter? All right, it would be extremely difficult. Our world, if it came to that, our world would become a lot smaller. than what it is, okay? In order for us to have a barter economy, it means that your world has to become a lot smaller. It means that you're probably not going to get any goods that are outside of your local area, all right? So that's my take on it, but I would really like to hear what you guys think about this bill here, this HR 5404, and the fact that just a few years ago they passed a law, the Dodd-Frank? Yeah, Dodd-Frank, that pretty much says that banks can now be bailed in instead of being bailed out. Pretty much effectively taking away the guarantee of that FDIC insurance that everybody thinks that they have. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and leave it at that. I would really like to hear what you guys have to say about this, or what you guys think about this. What do you guys think about the scenario that I brought up about that we do need money, that we do need a vehicle that we can use to exchange value from one hand to the other, all right, so that we can be able to trade more efficiently and be able to trade, period, for things that we actually need, instead of having to try to find someone that has what we want and that we have what they want, all right, because that would be extremely difficult. All right. And like I said, the scenario I gave is not a scenario where it's a total SHTF. You know, I think that we are going to go through some very, very difficult times, especially due to the monetary system that we're under right now, because it's almost at the end of its line. As you can see here in this HR 5404, even this acknowledges that our dollar has lost 96% of its purchasing power since 1913. All right, so I think that we are getting closer and closer to what's going to happen to actually happen. All right, and I'm just starting to wonder now, when we do go into another economic system, what kind of a system is it going to be? I think it's going to be a gold/resources backed economic system, because people are just not going to trust a piece of paper with a picture on it and a number on it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and call it quits on that one. All right, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. All right, so having said that, thank you very much for joining in today. I appreciate all you guys' support. All right, thank you very much. I've had a pretty good week today, by the way. My inspection went really, really well, so it's a good thing that I made that fudge. All right, our inspection went really, really well, and I'm really happy with all of the results for our entire office. So having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper, and I'm out.